Today we have yet another session of winemaking workshop. I have some of the questions of you of the viewers already who have emailed me there. If you have any more questions, on the on the left side there is going to be a comment section. Yeah, you can type it there. If you want to ask question anonymously, then you can email us at brew @Arishtam ARISHTAM.com. Okay. Over the next 60 minutes, I'll try to answer as many questions as possible about homemade winemaking. I hope all of you guys had a very good Christmas. Okay, so let's start with the first question. So what's the first question? The first question is, what is yeast nutrient and why do I need one? Okay, so here, let me just give a brief about what exactly is grape juice or fruit juice. Now, fruit juices, if you know, they are very low on proteins. That means they do not have assimilable nitrogen. The nitrogen, which is the building block of all living organisms, they do not have enough quantity of them. As a result, the yeast is not able to grow fast and finish the fermentation completely. So for this is the reason why you require yeast nutrient. You can use yeast nutrient and you can use yeast energizer. There's a slight difference between the two. Yeast nutrient is essentially, if you have a live colony, it will make it more stronger, more robust. While yeast energizer is meant for stuck fermentation. Stuck fermentation means that you had started the fermentation, but because of certain reason, the fermentation could not complete. Either the yeast tolerance level has been reached, or the temperature was too low, or the conditions were too acidic. Sometimes fruit juices are very acidic, so it could be a combination of variety of reasons. Okay, it could be because of variety of reasons. But if you have a stuck fermentation, then I would strongly recommend that you use yeast energizer. As the name energizer is there, it has a little bit of zinc inside. It has some enzymes inside. It has some vitamin B's inside. So with these three, it makes it more stronger. While yeast nutrient is a combination of DAP, which is diammonium phosphate, food grade diammonium phosphate, as well as small quantities, yeah, of autolyzed yeast, this is dead yeast, and certain building blocks which the yeast is required to grow and overcome, dominate the entire colony. Okay, how much to use? Well, it depends on your recipe, but I would personally, I use about half a gram a liter. So if you buy a 5 gram pack, that 5 gram pack is good for about 10 liters. 10 liters is 750 ml bottle. So you can understand how 10 liters is about 12 to 15 bottles. Okay, Caesar, you have this thing. Can stuck fermentation be resumed? Yes, stuck fermentation can be resumed. There is a link, a link on the website which has ways in which how to troubleshoot. So it's a troubleshooting guide is there. Towards the end of the class, I'm going to share, comment back the link of that be there. Stuck fermentation can definitely be resumed. Okay, now coming to the next question. The next question is how do you use a siphon and why do I need one? Okay. Now suppose you are making lemonade, right? If you want to pour lemonade in a glass, how do you do that? You take it in a jug and you pour it from top. Hi, Chansar. Yes, that reminds me. So Chansar is organizing Chand and Arishtam. Chansar and Arishtam are together organizing a bottle decoration competition. The last day for submitting this entry is 31st, which is a Thursday, and there are cash prizes to be won. So you can win 9 awards, each of 1,100 rupees each. Chansar and Ravi Soni, these two are the judges panel for that cash award. So you can go to arishtam.com, or you can go to this thing, the video which Chansar on the bottle decoration video that which Chansar has hosted. It is 90-minute video hosted about a month ago, in which the step-by-step process of how to decorate a bottle was there. Please do submit your entry and do avail amazing cash prizes. 1,109 cash prizes. So that is 9,900 rupees worth of cash prizes which are to be won. Okay, Caesar, your question we'll answer later. I will send you the link for that. Now coming to the question of siphon, right? So we were talking about how do you pour a lemonade. So you are pouring the lemonade like this. Caesar, I will be taking your question. I think this is part of this question. Thank you on the this thing, filtration process. Okay, so in the siphoning, right? When you pour it, now when you pour it like this, you are exposing your beverage to oxygen, right? The air will go through, and if you have kept your wine or beer outside for after you open for even 20 overnight, you would see the taste changes completely. The reason why the taste changes is because of oxidation. This oxygen will burn off the ethanol, convert into acetic acid, which makes it sour. And it's a bad kind of a sour, because if you have smelled a vinegar bottle, it starts burning your nostrils, right? It's a bad sour. So because of this bad sour acetic acid, which you do not want in your wine, right? Yeah, this oxidizes it. It will also sometimes even changes the color. Your red wine will turn orange, sometimes golden. So these are all signs of oxidation. One of the best ways to prevent oxidation during the transferring process is to use a siphon. What does a siphon do? Siphon is a gravity method. So there's no pumps involved. There's no complicated thing. It's a simple tube, right? You put one end of the tube in your fermenter or a jar in the jar where the wine is being made. You keep that in an elevation. So if you can't find an elevation, your tabletop is a great elevation, kitchen slab is a great elevation. Otherwise, if you have a small refrigerator, the top of the refrigerator is a great elevation. You keep it there. You put the tube there, and from the other end, now if you have driven your motorcycle or your scooter ever, sometimes we would siphon off the fuel there. So for that we use the other end, we suck, and once the flow starts, then we put it into a bottle, right? But here you're talking about food grade material, so you can't use the sucking mechanism, because here the saliva and the contamination will get introduced. So the what's the other method? So some of these siphons, the siphoning cane and the auto siphon, they come with a kind of a ball and a spring mechanism with which you can start your process. So this is you put it up and down two, 3 times with the valve mechanism. It will start sucking in, and after 3 or 4 attempts, your flow will start. And once your flow starts, from the other end, you can start filling bottle one by one. So this is about the siphoning process. Now coming to Caesar's second question, right? Which membrane porosity level in terms of micron do you recommend for final stages of filtration? Now here you'll meet different people which have different views. Now, if you meet any traditionalist, anybody from Europe who has been making wine, what they'll recommend you is, please do not use filtration, because traditional wines, they are not filtered. However, instead, what they do, what instead of filtration, what they do is they allow the wine to stay. So there is a primary fermenter, then they transfer it to a secondary fermenter, so that the sediment is removed and the top layer is removed, and sometimes even tertiary fermenter, which is a third level fermenter. So and then in the tertiary fermenter, they store it for at least 6 months. 6 months. My hands are visible. 5 plus 1, 6. 6 months. Any wine which they sell for less than a year, which is less than a year old, it's called young wine. Young, young, young wine for them. Okay, so when you allow it to settle for so long, a couple of things happens. Firstly, the aging happens, in which your harsh flavors, they get mellowed down. Your very complicated biochemical reactions happens, which makes the wine a lot more softer, a lot more valued, right? So this is the method, and it also clears the wine. Now, if you are in a hurry, and a lot of the winemakers in India, they want to start and finish the wine in 1 month, 30 days. 60 days is the maximum that they will do. In that case, you would need a fining agent. Now, there are two. Now, if you've decided that you would need a fining, you need to fine your wine. There are two ways to do that. One is a chemical fining, and the second is a filtration fining. Herein, if you're making a small batch, I would recommend you to go for chemical fining. So I'll share you the link, which is the 7 kinds of haze which are there in the wine and how to get rid of them. Mota moti aisa hota hai. The first kind is the pectin. Pectin is a binding agent between the cell walls. If you have taken a raw grape, just peel the outer layer. You would see that there's a jelly kind of ball or ball bearing there. Now that white jelly is held together by pectin. Now this pectin will causes the haze, and this is the biggest source of haze in almost all wines. Now to reduce the pectin, we use an enzyme called pectinase. or pectin enzyme. That enzyme will break down this. And we do it in the first day. The reason why we do it in the first day is because when it breaks down, it makes extraction of juice also easier. So you get more aroma, you get a better gravity, and the amount of juice from every kg of grapes or fruits that you get also goes up. Okay, so this is the first fining agent. The second fining agent that you use after that is bentonite. Now, bentonite is naturally formed volcanic clay, which is mined from the earth. So it is again, it is not a chemical. It does not do any harm to the body. It's used in a very small quantity, but since it's natural, it takes much longer to show its effect. So since it takes much longer to show its effect, you typically add it in the primary fermenter, which means that you add it in the second day or the third day, and you allow it to be there in the fermenter for about for a week or so. So in that process, what it does is it has this long silica atoms which is attached with calcium and calcium and sodium salt. So calcium and sodium salts goes away, and any positively charged particle that is there in your fermenter, it attaches to it, it goes back, then those particles gets removed, and along with the carbon dioxide it again goes up, and like that the process goes up and down. With this, it is able to clear the wine in a very efficient manner. Okay, but it will only clear the positively charged particles. Now comes the third fining agent that a lot of people do, that is food grade gelatin. You can get find gelatin in the ice cream shops, or Arishtam also keeps it. There are different kinds of gelatins. It's usually categorized by bloom capacity. So you can read a little bit and find the gelatin that works for you. So in the gelatin, what you do is these attached to the negatively charged particles. So there is a concept called cold crashing. Cold, 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 crash, CRASH, cold crashing. So essentially, what we do is we take in a half cup of water, we heat the water, and you add gelatin. Gelatin is difficult to dissolve, so we use heated water and we stir it vigorously so that the gelatin is dissolved, and then we pour it into a fermenter. After pouring into a fermenter, we are going to keep it in the refrigerator. If you want to be really technical, then the refrigerator has to be at 4 degrees Celsius. So it's not frozen, it's not high temperature, it's 4 degrees Celsius. Usually the dairy, which is the milk, the cheese, and the butter, they are kept at 4 degrees Celsius. So you have a zone at a setting for 4 degrees Celsius, the dairy setting. So keep it at the dairy setting. This will allow, this is what it does is, there's something called Brownian motion, which means that any particles, the colloidal particles, they suspend, go here and there. And as the temperature rises, their motion is increased, and as the temperature falls down, they become heavier. Their velocity also reduces, and they settle down. That's the reason why, if anything, any buttermilk or any curd, if you keep in the refrigerator, the water and the curd part gets separated out. The pulp and the fruit juice will also get separated out. So we do exactly the same thing, and we get a nice sediment layer by keeping it for 24 to 48 hours. There is a link on the website arishtam.com, free video tutorials. If you go there, you will find a cold crashing tutorial with video on how to do that. Another thing that a lot of traditional winemakers use is isinglass. Isinglass, again, you use it in a very, very sparing quantity. The 5 gram packet that we sell, that's good for about 100 liters of 100 liters of wine. So that's if that will give you the size and the potency of the isinglass. Now coming to Caesar Ace's original question is, which porosity membrane to be used. So firstly, you have to remember that if your wine is not clear, if it is cloudy, don't pass it through a membrane, because the only thing that will happen if you pass it through a membrane is that the membrane will get clogged. And while you are doing a filtration of a large batch, and the membrane gets clogged, your filter gets clogged, then there's a back pressure which is built up all across your piping, and then there'll be leakages, and you'll have to stop the entire process. You have to drain out the pipes, and clean up the filters, and again reattach. That is a very, very tedious process. Yeah, so do not use the normal RO filters for there. What you need to use is 1 micron. So one micron pleated filters. So pleated filters, you have seen your pant pleats or your skirt pleats. So essentially, the cloth goes here and there. So the reason for this is this will increase the surface area of the membrane many folds. By increasing the surface area, the chances of the membrane to get blocked reduces a lot. So firstly, I'm repeating. So firstly, you have to ensure that your wine is not cloudy. So filtration, so filtration in the winemaking term is called polishing. So first we did the fining. So in the fining, we got rid of anything which made it cloudy. Then we want it to be crystal clear, the way so that your Instagram posts and the glasses look perfect. In that, we use something called polishing. So in the polishing, what we do is we take a filtered wine, not a we take a fine wine in which is not cloudy. You pass it through a 1 micron filter. So any particles, any yeast which is there, it will start to remove that. Okay, and you need a pleated filter so that your sediments do not the sediments do not block the filter. Okay, so 1 micron pleated filter. So Caesar, let me know if that answers your question. If you have any more, just do drop in the comment section. And if you want to ask the question anonymously, you can email us at brew @the rate Arishtam. Now coming to the next question that people had, that was pectin versus pectin enzyme. I think we discussed that. I'll just, for the sake of simplicity, I would say, in the store baking supplies or jams and jelly supplies, you would come across something called pectin. Now, pectin is very different from the pectin enzyme that we are talking about. Pectin is a binding agent; it's a thickening agent that is used in jams, jellies, in some of the fruit juices to make a juice a little bit thicker. Okay. Now here for the winemaker, we don't want something which is thick. In the thick wine in winemaking terms called ropey wine. We don't want thick ropey wine. What we want is free flowing wine, which is pleasant to drink. So we break down the pectin. So the pectin that you find in the store is opposite, right? The pectin enzyme is to break it down so that the pectin is no longer there in your fruit juice, and it is naturally found. Okay, so that is the difference between pectin versus pectin enzyme. Again, how much to use? We For grapes we use very little, and for the fruit juices we use twice the amount. So typically about 1 gram per liter is recommended for fruit juices, and half a gram per liter is recommended for grape juices. Next question was isinglass. We discussed isinglass, so that is here. There was another interesting question about raisin wine. Now, one of the biggest problem in India is that quality of good wine grapes is difficult to find. Nasik has some, Uttarakhand and Himachal Pradesh has some vineyards. Karnataka also has some. These three regions, it is easier to find, but beyond these three regions, you will be struggling to get good quality grapes. And also, the grapes are seasonal, so you'll get maximum two harvests in a year. In Uttaranchal, it is less because the winter harvest, the temperature sometimes goes so low that it's not a good harvest. So, anyways, coming back here, right? So, the grapes are not available throughout the season. However, the raisins are available. You can make good wine from raisins. If you want to search for a recipe for wine, so it is called ice wine, ice wine, wine, ice wine. Similarly, what happens in ice wine is in Europe when it is frozen. It's very low temperatures. The grape juices, the grape vines, they allow it to stay in the wines. So as the temperature is going down in the night, the sugar crystallizes in one corner of the grape side. The overall overall sugar density is lower in the grape. So the grape starts taking in more sugar and more nutrients from the plant. And with this, you will result in something which is much higher sugar in content, much higher brix content. So that is one way. Something else called also late harvest wine is also there. Late harvest wine is in the tree. They allow the grapes to shrivel, so they dry out and they shrivel. So like the wheat and the barley, when we grow the maize that we grow, we allow it to mature on the plant itself. Like that on the grape vineyards, they allow it to do that. And with that, there is a recipe. Apart from that, there is a, if you use the commercial raisins, yes, you can convert it. Just be remember that the wine is a little bit hazier. The reason is the damaged in this process. So a lot of the nutrients from the skin is there in your wine, because of which the wine will be a little bit hazier. So you require a little bit more patience, but you can convert raisins into a great wine. The recipe for the same is there on the website. So I'll be a little bit fast about that. Now coming to another question that was asked to us is, what sanitizer do you use? Now, grapes, unlike the beer, is very easy, right? You can use various amounts of sanitizers, because your alcohol levels is going to be high, which means the alcohol will starts acting as a sterilizer, antiseptic or a sterilizer, which will prevent the microbial action. B, wines typically tend to be of lower pH. Yeah, typical pH that we witness in India would be 4 to 3.5 pH. So lower pH means highly acidic scenario in which the mold does not grow. The beer is a little bit higher pH, so it has a lot more sensitive to the mold action compared to the wine. So that gives us a lot of leeway, a lot of flexibility on what kind of sanitizers to use. Now there are different sanitizers which are there. So the first sanitizer that I would recommend you would be Camden. Camden is potassium metabisulfite. You get in powder form, you can get in tablet form. Amazon sells in tablet form. Arishtam sells it in powder form. Whatever you want, you can use it. Don't use it too much. And the benefit about that is it's a rinse-free sanitizer. Why? Because it produces sulfur dioxide, and the sulfur dioxide is a gas. So after 24 hours, it goes away. So you even would be in some of the traditional recipes, you would also be adding Camden on the first day of the fermentation when you make the grape juice. So it is food grade and it is very easy to use. The second thing would be rinse-free sanitizers. So if you are using a commercial rinse-free sanitizers, then Anfosan, ANPHO, Anfosan, yeah, is a sanitizer which Ashton would be selling. The equivalent of that would be sold by Amazon. That's called Starsan, STAR Star SAN, Starsan. You can buy either of them. The ratios are the same. It is to be diluted, and you have to maintain the pH there. The typical dilution would be you take a cupful, which is this cap full, the bottle cap, which is a 5 ml cap, and you dilute it in 7 liters of water. 7 liters of water, right? So when you dilute it, it'll create it's a no rinse sanitizer, which means that after you've cleaned all your surfaces, all you have to do is you have to invert the vessel, tap it, so that all the excess water, the water which is sticking around, that goes away. But after that, you don't have to wash. Like if you wash your vessel with soap, right, you have to you have to again put it under the tap and wash off the residue of the soap. But in Camden as well as in Anfosan, you don't need to worry about that. Now it comes in two forms. It comes in a gel form and a brown liquid form. Gel form is a little bit harder to pour because it's been made into gel, but the ratios are the same. And the brown liquid is something which is very closer to the Star Sense and the Western phosphoric acid based sanitizer recipes. It's closer to that, but either one you can use it. So that would be another question. Now coming to this thing is haze and clarity. We have already answered. There's a question about hydrometers. Hydrometers versus refractometers. Now Arishtam sells three different hydrometers, right? The first hydrometer that sells is triple scale hydrometer. Now, triple scale hydrometer is what we recommend to almost all home brewers. It has three scales inside that. One scale is a Brix scale. Brix is nothing but percentage of sugar or fermentable sugar in a per liter of your liquid. The second thing that is the density meter, which is nothing but the specific gravity. A lot of recipes that you'll be talking about, they will be talking about specific gravity in points, like 10 point, 100 points, 140 points. So what they are saying is 140 points is 1.140. Now your distilled water at 20 degrees Celsius will have a density of 1.000. Now this is 1.140. So the density is 14% higher, and which means that it will have upwards of 20% sugar inside the solution, right? And when you finish, we typically finish for wine, dry wine, it is lighter than water. The reason is ethanol is lighter than water. In case if you have a sweet wine, then it will be a little bit heavier. So you have a range there. So that's the density points. A lot of the professionals will prefer in the density points compared to the Briggs scale or the potential alcohol scale. And the third scale was the potential alcohol scale. Now remember, it is potential alcohol. Potential alcohol means that there is if all the sugar which is remaining that gets fermented out, how much more alcohol will get produced. So to compute how much alcohol is there in your beverage, you need to have a starting density and a final density. And the difference between the two density is the amount of sugar that got converted into alcohol. And that is the potential alcohol. So initial density minus final density is your potential alcohol, or is your real alcohol that is generated. Okay, so this is about the hydrometer. This is the triple scale hydrometer. The second hydrometer that we sell is called a distillation hydrometer. Now, since I mentioned, right, the alcohol measurement is a very important thing for taxation reasons, for excise reasons, and for authorities. Now, for them, it is not possible for the same batch, they'll make two measurements, right? The initial measurement and the final measurement. So they need something which is more accurate, not accurate, more instant. So what they use is a distillation method. So they are going to take about 250 ml sample, 250 ml. So that's and you can go to FSI or excise department's website. They'll have the test methodology, but typical methodology would be like that. They'll take a 250 ml sample. They are going to distill it. You can access your high school chemistry laboratories, physics laboratory, any of your university laboratories. They will have the distillation apparatus. You just refresh your mind a little bit. It'll do it. Or there are tons of laboratory distillation methods which are there. So when the 250 ml is distilled, they'll generate about 50 ml, 50 ml of distillate there, and then they are going to put a ethanol hydrometer there. Now the difference between this is triple scale hydrometer is one which is water and more density, while ethanol hydrometer is water would be the lowest and ethanol scale. So it is water up and above. So the scale of the two is completely different. Now, depending upon what you're trying to measure, there'll be different hydrometers. For kombucha, we'll recommend 0 to 40% hydrometer, and but in case of wine, because there's a concentration factor, we recommend you to use this hydrometer, the 40 to 70% hydrometer. So these are the two hydrometers for ethanol measurement and one hydrometer for Brix measurement. These are the three there. Apart from that, there is something called a refractometer. Refractometer is great for the field. If you have your own plantation and you need to find out, okay, this is a crop, but is my crop mature enough? So what you can do is you can pluck one grape, or you can draw 2 3 drops, right, 2 3 drops of sample. While the triple scale hydrometer requires 250 ml, here you require only 2 3 drops. You put it on the refractometer. If you yeah, there and look at the eyepiece, it will tell you how much sugar percentage is there in the fruit juice. So it helps you make a better decision about the crop. Whether you are harvesting it, whether you're purchasing it, you'll be better informed. You know that any crop which matures, which ripens on the tree, that is much more flavorful than which is ripened artificially using acetylene gas or calcium carbide powder, whatever. So winemakers try to be as natural as possible. Okay, so this is about the hydrometer. Then the next question would be hydrating the yeast. Okay, I just got this question. So I have not received any email from anybody. So now, if you're watching and you have any question to ask about winemaking, you can write in the comment section, or you can email us. Okay, coming to the hydrating the yeast. Now, one recommendation that we do to everybody is that please hydrate the yeast. Most of the international recipes will say sprinkle the yeast directly. I would not recommend you for following reasons. First reason is, suppose the yeast is dead. Now, if you have sprinkled it, it will take you 2 days before you can figure out whether your yeast was dead. And by the time your fruit will start spoiling, and there'll be other things, you'll be behind schedule, and you have lost that much time. But if you are hydrating the yeast, and it's very simple, if you're buying a 5 gram pack of yeast, take a 50 ml of water, sterilize water at room temperature. Your body is at your skin is at 38 degrees Celsius, right? Take 30 degrees, which is colder than your hand temperature, right? 30 degrees Celsius. You take 50 ml of water. You pour the sachet of yeast. You wait for 15 minutes. In 15 minutes, you will see a little bit of foam layer being there. You can go to the baking videos. Baking videos will have use this in the form of proofing, PRWF, proofing. So proofing of yeast, if you Google, you'll find that there. You allow it for 15-20 minutes. In 15-20 minutes, you'll see a nice healthy foam which is formed, and you pour that in your fermenter. So that way, you are sure that your yeast is not dead. It is a big relief, right? Otherwise, if your yeast was dead, you would have lost 2 days. So that's the reason why we recommend you to hydrate the yeast. Uh, Selection of grapes, right? So we briefly covered the selection of grapes. Now on the website, there is a link. There is a link. I can type that link also. End of the class, I will. I will type. I'll type the link as well. So that link. So essentially, there are about 15 varieties of grapes which are there. Almost all of the grapes can be used for winemaking, and you can make a decent wine from those grapes. However, certain grapes are meant and grown for winemaking. Typically, characteristics of those grapes would be A, the skin would be a little bit thicker. The reason why the skin is thicker is because if you're making red wine, the color of the wine comes only from the skin. And if you can take a black grape and you can peel the skin, you would see that the skin is reddish or blackish in color, while the inside fruit is completely white. So if the skin is thick, then yeah, then the wine that you'll make is full bodied wine, which will have a lot much better, deeper color and much better flavors. Hmm. So that is one. Secondly, most of the wine grapes will have seed inside. And third thing would be the size of the grape would be smaller. Now the Thompson, which is the green grapes, the long green grapes. If you see that does not have seed inside, the skin will also be a lot thinner. You can make wine from that, but you'll not make a decent wine from there. The decent wine would be something which has seed inside, which will have a thicker skin. The grape size is also smaller. Those are the characteristics there, and how to identify would be there on the website. Grape varieties of India would be there. The pictures and everything would be there. There will be a video also which will help you identify. So that's how you can do. Now coming to the fruits. Now the fruits, you can make wine from almost any fruit. A couple of fruits that I personally like would be, one is pineapple, which I made a few weeks ago. Jamun is another favorite. In jamun, I'll prefer if you can use the country jamun. Country jamun would be irregular in shape, smaller in size, not the polished one that you get in the market. I don't know. They are not that flavorful. And again, you know that all the color of the jamun is in the skin. So the smaller the jamun, the more would be the skin compared to the total volume. So you'll get a deeper red color there. So jamun will be there. Kokum is something which is available in South India that can make a good thing. Banana is something which is there. Banana wine recipe is there on the website. So you can pick and choose any fruit and you can convert it. Apple is something that a lot of people talk about, but apple per se has very little juice content. So it's called cider. You can go to any recipe. They will talk about how to make wines from apples and pears. And pear wine is called Perry, Perry, and cider, apple cider, everybody would have heard about. So these would be the common things. Apart from that, you can make wine from fruit juices as well. So you get those Tetra Pak juices. Now here, if you're taking Tetra Pak juices, couple of things you need to worry about. So first thing is check the label. The label, it should say no preservatives there. So typically anything in the Tetra packet is UHT, ultra heat treatment done. So if it's UHT, then they do not add any preservative. But if you have something which is a twist cap bottle, they typically have a preservatives inside. So just look at the label, it will tell you. The reason is if you have preservatives there, so when you ferment it, it will impede the yeast action. So if your yeast action is impeded, then you will end up with stuck fermentation. Okay. The second thing that you need to be worried about would be that it should not have any added colors or flavors inside. Why? Well, it's simple. You want to make something natural, and that's the reason why you're taking the pains to ferment it yourself. Then go for something which is natural. So go for something which is 100% juice, which does not have any flavors and colors inside, right? You'll be better off. Okay. These two things. Uh, I repeat, first thing, no preservatives, no colors, flavors, anything that you would not like to consume. Check the label, it should not have that. And the third thing would be, go for things which are 100% juice. So if these three things are there, you can buy them and you can ferment it there inside, right? Those will be great for wine. And usually it would be there on the website, my first wine, or prison hooch. Prison is in the jail, because uh, these are things which are very readily available. You don't have to um, go to a farm and pick up your fruit. So it's called prison hooch as also. So those recipes are there on the website. You can go with that. So that is the whole thing. Now, coming to how to use an airlock. So that I will talk about. Let me get my airlocks and your bottle aging. So these are the two questions that are there. And with the after that we'll be finishing. So let me get you some airlocks. Right. So let me just show you the hydrometers as well. So this is the ethanol hydrometer, and as you can see, the one is at the bottom, which is what the water level reading should be, and 40 is at the top, right? So this is the hydrometer, and it fits into a 50 ml measuring cylinder. Now this is a triple scale hydrometer. It is color coded for your reference, right? Your water level is here, and when you start, I typically start at 1.100, right? So this is the level at which we start, and as the fermentation happens, this will go down. So this is the specific gravity reading, this is the potential alcohol reading, and this would be your Brix reading, BRIX, Brix reading. So this is the two hydrometers that we are talking about. I will put it up later. You have to be very delicate about your hydrometers. If you handle them roughly, these are delicate glass items, they will break down. Now coming to the airlock, there are two airlocks. This is the S-type airlock, which they're buying them like 1,000 airlocks a month, and this is a three-piece airlock. So let's start with the three-piece airlock. Why it's called three-piece? This is the piece number one. There's a lid called, this is a piece number two, and this is the third piece. You can fabricate that yourself as well using a pen cap or something. So this is very similar to the pressure cooker mechanism, right? So you insert this on your vessel, so till this much is covered, and you keep the cap on top. Now, as the fermentation happens, it will create the pressure. With this pressure, this lid gets lifted. Okay, this gets lifted, and when it gets lifted, the built-up pressure goes out. And once the pressure is released, the lid will again come back. And when it comes back, it is again sealed, and no outside air can go inside. We recommend that you fill this halfway through with water. That will be better. But if you can't, that's a separate story, right? You can use it with or without water, it doesn't matter. And this lid is on top of it. It has holes inside. You can see, I don't know whether you can see, but yeah, I think you can see now. There will be small tiny holes on top of it. This will allow the air to escape. Now, S-type airlock is a much simpler airlock. Um, it is an open tube, so there's no barrier. So we create a barrier. How do we create a barrier? We are going to add some water. When we add the water to the halfway mark, right? So this water level will act as a body. So right? This is very similar to what you can see in your kitchen sinks, in your commodes. You'll have this cistern kind of an S barrier here. Now, as the fermentation happens, the pressure gets built up from the bottom, and this CO2 will get pushed here, and it will push uh, put pressure on this water column, and it will get escaped out. And once the oxygen is escaped out, the air from outside cannot enter inside. The reason why it cannot get inside, why? Because this water will prevent it from getting inside. That's as simple as that. So these are this thing. Now comes to the concept called aging, right? Now aging is a very complicated concept when it comes to India. Typically, Europeans will talk about 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, even sometimes longer aging. But typically, 3 years is where, yeah, 1 to 3 years is where most of the wines which are sold are aged, and 3 to 5 years would be something which is the wines which are special wines, which if you have to gift, those would be the wines that are there. And anything beyond 5 years which has been aged, those are occasion wines. So these are wines restricted for a particular occasion. But in India, typically the wines and the ciders that we consume, they are pretty young. So herein, what you read in the Western books sometimes are not applicable for Indian standards. The reason is A, the Indian temperatures are pretty high. So if the temperatures in Delhi, for example, in summers can soar as high as 40 degrees Celsius, and most of the people who are storing, even the stores which are storing, they don't have a temperature cool wine cellar. So if you don't have a wine cellar, temperatures are rising up. That will start going, the heat oxidized, heat damaged wines, you'll start witnessing them. And those wines are bad for you. Right? The flavors do not grow. In fact, the flavors tends to get retarded a little bit. So this is the reason why Indians typically go for younger wines, because younger wines, the chances of heat damage is less. This is one. Okay, so whenever you age the wine, temperature is very important. Second thing about wine is there is something called micro oxidation. Now, any wine, if you put a screw cap is like a metal crimping. It is a perfect crimping. So there is no oxygen that goes inside. It's great for to prevent the wines being spoiled. But the screw cap wines, they do not age well. To age them, you need to put a cork inside them, and then the cork wine you cannot keep it upright. It has to be kept at a slant, and you would see most of the wine cellars they would be keeping the wine horizontally or at a angle. All the champagne is kept always at an angle, and wine sometimes here, sometimes depending upon there. The reason is you want the cork to be moist all the time. The cork is not moist. The wood is not. So when the wood becomes moist, you would know that it expands, and it expands, and it prevents it from oxidation. But if the wood dries out, then it shrinks, and when it shrinks, it can allow the oxygen in the side to pass through it. So the oxygen will pass through it, and then the wine gets spoiled. And even sometimes mold also gets there. So they are called Brett wines, Brett, Brett wines. So you have to keep your wine at an inverted position and a cork wine. So those are the two requirements to age it. Okay, but what will happen in the first 3 to 6 months of the wine is your wine gets clear, which is very important because even we had a viewer question also about how to clear the wine. So that's the first aspect which we talk about. The second aspect is that the harsh flavors gets mellowed down. So depending upon what your preference is, my recommendation is don't go with the what the book says. Go with what your gut feeling says. Find out what suits you. So if you want to find out what suits you, sample it. As simple as that. Draw a sample. Okay, draw a sample. 1 month is the minimum that I will recommend you. So draw a sample on the fourth week. See if it's clear enough. If you would like to, if that is a wine that you would like to give it to your spouse. If not, then you wait a little bit longer. Try after a few more weeks. A few more weeks. Wait and try till you don't find the perfect mixture. Second thing is certain wines they tend to start tasting bitter, astringency is higher, or wines that you do not like for whatever reason. Those wines are the perfect candidates for aging because what happens in the aging is because of complex biochemical reactions. uh, the tannins, the phenols, those break down. And when they break down, your wines becomes there. And there is no rule that your wine, the older the wine, the better it is. But yes, if you want a better wine, you need to age them properly. That is more important. I have tasted great ciders which are 3 months old, some great red wines which are 6 months old. So each wine, based on the how it was made, what was the process that was used, has a different there. 3 to 6 months onwards, you would start getting good wines for them. Yeah, so these were all the questions that the viewers had asked. If you have any more questions, I'll be here for another a couple of minutes. Write in the comment section or email us. I'll be happy to cover it. Otherwise, we will be concluding our class. Thank you very much. I'll be here. This line will be on for another 5 minutes. So while we are waiting, I'm going to take this opportunity to answer some of the questions that were asked. Okay, Caesar, your stuck fermentation, I've provided you the link. How does the energizer work in this case? That is also covered. Okay, membrane porosity. So I'll give you the link to the filtration system. Oh, there were a lot of questions. My apologies. Okay, I had so Krishna, your question is to make 1 kg of black grape wine. Please tell me the steps and what will I need? How much Camden to add? Okay, so Krishna, I'm going to give you the link to it. Okay, red wine. So on an average, I would recommend you to use about 1.5 kgs of grapes to make a red wine. And I'm going to reply to you with the link with the detailed recipe and a video, which will help you get started. Okay. Then comes next question for vegetarian. What is the substitute to gelatin? See, as I said, right? If you are making, just a minute, vegetarian wine. So I'm going to share a link to the vegetarian wine. You do not require fining and polishing agents per se. You can wait a little bit longer. If you wait, all wines will clear naturally. The traditionally wines that were made, they were always naturally cleared. Okay. Now coming to Leela's question, what type of enzyme do you recommend for crushing and pectin removal process? So for that, we use pectin enzyme. I'm going to share the link to for pectin enzyme. Okay, and I would recommend you to use about half a gram per kg of grapes and 1 gram per kg of fruits. So non-grape fruits, specifically the apples, pears, the bananas, and pineapples. You use about that, but you can go up and down a little bit. It's doesn't do any harm because it's a very simple enzyme. Okay, so this is there, Caesar. How to kill the yeast before starting the wine. So to Caesar, to kill the yeast before starting the wine, what we use is called Camden. Okay, Camden. So one tablet is equivalent to about half a gram of Camden, and depending on what recipe you're using, you'll alter the ratio a little bit. So Camden I'm going to share the link. So that link will has a FAQs. It has a video, and it has the reviews of how to use Camden. So I hope that will help you. Okay. So that is Caesar's question. Then comes, okay, what should you do if your wine smells rotten, and what are the reasons? Now, wine smelling rotten of a yard like is very very bad. Okay, so and one of the major reasons for that is you did not sort out your fruits before adding it, before juicing it. So if you find any wine or a cider maker, what they would do is they will have these people, or they would themselves, they will spread a big sheet or a big tarpaulin. They would empty the entire baskets of fruits, and they'll manually see what all are the areas which are rotten. So anything which is rotten, you need to cut it out and throw it away. So if your fruit was rotten, then that could be one of the reasons. The second reason is, for the rotten flavor, is that the wild microbes that were there, they have not been killed out properly. So you need to add Camden to for that. What the Camden does is it kills out the bacteria, it kills out the mold, anything which is unwanted, and you wait for about 24 hours for it to dissipate in the atmosphere, and then you are going to add your yeast to it. So by making it a monoculture, you are ensuring that the bad flavors are not there. Okay. The third reason is because of the spices that you have added. Certain spices, they tend to give you the vegetable flavors. The fourth thing could be that you have allowed it to sit on the yeast bed. So when you're fermenting, the first 3-4 days, the pulp will float on the top, the seeds and the yeast and anything which is not fermentable, they'll sit on the bottom. So you need to take the middle portion from primary to a secondary vessel. So if you delay that, then these things will start breaking down, and when they break down, you will get a lot of off flavors. The second thing is in the secondary vessel also. So first vessel we keep it for about 5 days to 1 week. Second vessel we keep it for about 3 weeks to 1.5 months, depending on your temperature, depending upon your style. But 3 weeks to 1.5 months. Yeah, as the fermentation gets completed in that thing, after is there something called flocculation. Flocculation is the dead yeast binding together and settling at the bottom. Now, as a flocculation will happen, something called a yeast bed is created. Now, on that yeast bed, which in winemaking calls a lees, LWES, lees, you do not want the wine to be sitting on top of it for a very very long time. So, Krishna, if you move it from a secondary to a tertiary vessel, right, after 3 weeks to 6 weeks time, then also you will not get these vegetable flavors. So three things: firstly, ensure that the fruits and the grapes that you're using are not rotten. Second thing is that the wild microbes is killed. And thirdly, off flavors is not introduced by breakdown of dead pulp, and dead yeast, pulp, seeds, stems, those kinds of things. If these three are there, most probably you'll be better off. I'm going to share the link of the various off flavors in wine, and how do you identify them and how do you remedy them, for your reference. So that is there. Any other question? We still have another 4 minutes to go. I'll be happy to answer. I'm just finding the link for you. Yeah. So I've shared the link. Anything else, please let me know. How do you use turbo yeast to make fruit wine? How many days it requires? Is primary and secondary fermentation both required? See, the turbo yeast is actually not a wine yeast per se. It is more like an ethanol producing yeast. So bioethanol it produces. But certain people use it for making wine. The difference between this is it does the reaction in a very fast pace, because of which the complex flavors, the delicacy that we talk about, those are not there. But if you're making from fruit juices, right, I'll recommend you to use Tetra Pak juice, which is easiest to find. In 60 bucks you can go to any supermarket, D-Mart, Metro, Big Bazaar, any place. In 60 bucks you can get a decent packet of Tetra Pak juice. Uh, add So Tetra Pak juice will have about 100 grams of sugar inside that in per liter. You need to make it to 180 to 200 grams. So you add about 80 grams of sugar additional on top of it. 80 grams of sugar per liter on top of it. And you add 3 grams of turbo yeast in it. And then you put an airlock onto it, and you wait for about 3 days to 1 week. In winters, I recommend you to wait a week. In summers, it will be 3 days. And if you want it faster, you can wrap it in a blanket, like idli and the dahi batter that you do, right? You have a cabinet for that, or you'll have a separate process for that. If in the same process, that's your fermentation chamber. If you keep your turbo yeast in 3 days, you'll get it ready. Then since you have already mentioned you're vegetarian, just after it's ready, you keep it in your fridge at 4 degrees Celsius, which is the dairy section. Don't freeze it, but keep it at the lowest temperature for 24 hours. That will clear it up. That will remove any bread notes or the yeasty notes, what we call, from there, and you are good to go. A bit cloudy. It will be very strong, but yeah, it works. So for 3 days for that, 1 day for this, 4 days, maybe a few more days if you want to clear it a little bit. In 4 days to a week's time, you would have a decent Tetra Pak juice wine. I'm going to share that link with you. So it's called How to Make Wine at Home, or it's also called Prison Hooch Wine. So that link I'm sharing. Right, it'll have a video and it'll have everything. Is there any more questions? No, there are no more questions, and we are out of time also. So we'll be ending the workshop now. Thank you very much for joining, and do remember, Chancellor is also here. We have a competition in which 9,900 rupees worth of prizes are to be won for the new year. Please submit your entries. The steps of the competition are there on the website. Submit your entries, and we'll be happy to share the reward with you. Thank you very much.